Welcome, and thank you all for attending the Monday, October 25th Mayor and Council meeting. And the first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance and the presentation of Color Guard by the Sons of the American Revolution, the Piedmont Chapter.
Color guard, halt. To the left, face. And salute. To the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
two.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. We certainly do appreciate your color guard and leading us in the pledge. Is there anything that you would like to update us on? Any activities that you've got going on?
Well, we missed doing a lot of the in-person events that we've been doing over the last several years, particularly Roswell Remembers. That was always one that's been a big hit with the community and certainly with us. We look forward to hopefully seeing that happen again next year.
We look forward to that as well. So hopefully we will be getting back to our sense of normal. So thank you all for coming out this evening.
Very good.
Let's hear it for these gentlemen.
To the left, face. Forward mark. Go ahead.
The next item we have on the agenda is the consent agenda, and it's been requested that we pull number 3, and I'll put that at the top of our regular agenda after the mayor's report. Do I have a motion to approve the consent?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the presentation by the Sons of the American Revolution, Piedmont Chapter, with law enforcement, fire safety, and emergency medical services commendation and medals in recognition of their outstanding record of achievements. Yes, sir, please come forward.
Thank you. My name is Al Finley. I am the member of the National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution, and I am president of the Piedmont chapter, which is responsible for Roswell. And it is an honor to present these awards to these public servants for going and doing things when in the press we don't hear a lot about that kind of stuff. And so our organization is really responsible for the education of our ancestors who founded this country. I have 7 ancestral grandfathers and grandmothers that were involved, and so it's an honor to extend that education to people who now serve in our community. So I would like to start off with the fire safety commendation and medal. It's presented to an individual for accomplishments and contributions in the area of fire safety and services, and it is awarded as a national medal. And so if I would give this medal to the fire chief, I want to read about firefighter Chad Miller. He has been a member of the Roswell Fire Department since 2017. He's a member of the Mountain Park Volunteer Fire Department, where he serves as chaplain. He is also a proud Roswell native and serves on community services both on and off duty. He has exemplified the attitudes and characteristics of a faithful servant and currently assigned to Fire Station Number 3 and leads the departmental peer support team. When he is not responding to the aid of the city, he can be found training and studying for self-improvement and improving departmental programs. He also is involved in the Roswell schools, educating students in fire safety, and plays an important role in the Roswell Fire Department. And it was with that honor that I would like to have the chief make Mr. Miller the award.
Congratulations. Thank you, Chief.
Okay?
And we would love to have, council would love to have a quick picture with you before you sit down. Thank you.
What we were thinking was to have a group photo of everybody, if that is okay, or would you rather have individual?
That would be fine. I was just thinking individual photographs, but that's fine.
Hey, this is your show. Yeah.
No, we do that.
Looks good. Oh, wow, I'm amplified. Says the camera. You good? Yeah. That's good, thank you. You might as well stay down there for the next few.
This next award is for the EMS Commendation and Medal, and it is presented to an individual for accomplishments and contributions in the area of emergency medical service, paramedics, certified technicians, and anybody else in the medical field. Basically, EMS Director Mr. Alex Roba began his career in 2001 as an EM technician and achieved the rank of paramedic, critical care paramedic, field training officer, and shift command in Florida and in Georgia. He joined the Roswell Fire Department in 2019 and is an integral part of the COVID-19 executive team, has been instrumental in leading COVID testing programs for city employees and assisting all city departments with their equipment needs, guidance to department heads, and the list goes on. So has played an active role in the Roswell Emergency Management Team and has responded to special events, weather, and civil demonstrations. Would you present that award, please?
Absolutely. Congratulations.
Okay.
smile.
The last award is for Public Safety Police Commendation and Medal is presented to an individual for outstanding contributions in the area of public safety and service. It is presented to be recognized by a variety of police, public safety, and services that evolved into a technical and skilled profession and involves dedicated citizens with a single goal: protecting human life, property, through duty, honor, service, and dedication. Officer Amber Darby is an individual who exceeds expectations, has represented the Roswell 9/11 Center in a positive and professional manner. She shows commitment to the improvement and advancement of the center and maintains excellent relationships with all of her co-workers and lends a hand when needed. Amber routinely accomplishes many tasks beyond her normal job duties and has shown a commitment to the 9/11 Center and to the police department as a whole. So it is with great honor that we give you this 9/11 Communications Officer. Okay, folks,
Another groupie.
come on down.
Oh, dear. Wish they had a little thing that come out. Get up there.
I know, sometimes I have to just cut the picture.
Are you
yeah,
the
and
official
crop it.
city photographer?
No, but,
Oh, okay. Well, that'd be cool.
yeah,
Maybe you need to be.
all right,
This lens is pretty good, though. I get them all.
yeah,
There more coming? You got it?
all right, yeah, squeeze in a little bit more, there we go.
Try to get the Roswell sign. I think we're good.
Mayor, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda this evening is the proclamation for Georgia Retired Educators Day. Whereas the governor of the state of Georgia has proclaimed the day of Sunday, November 7th, 2021, as Retired Educator Day in Georgia. And whereas there are more than 140,000 retired educators in Georgia, 31,000 plus of whom are members of the Georgia Retired Educators Association, and whereas the retired educators of Georgia donate thousands of hours of volunteer service and make invaluable contributions to the welfare of their respective communities across the state. And whereas it is appropriate that a day be designated for citizens to express their appreciation for the contributions that retired educators have made and continue to make for the betterment of human lives and for society. And whereas local churches will recognize those lasting contributions made by retired educators in this community. Now therefore I, Lori Henry, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim November 7th, 2021 as Retired Educators Day and call upon all citizens of the community to observe and honor our retired educators. And do we have anyone representing our retired educators today? Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here this evening, and thank you for everything that you do in our community. Not only have you dedicated your lives to teaching our children, then when you're retired, you continue to help educate and help our community. So thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is a proclamation for National American Indian Heritage Month. Whereas the history and culture of our great nation have been significantly influenced by American Indians and indigenous peoples, and whereas the contributions of American Indians have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today, and whereas their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States, and whereas Native American Awareness Month began in 1976 and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by President George Bush in August of 1990, designating November as National American Indian Heritage Month. And whereas, in honor of National American Indian Heritage Month, community celebrations, as well as numerous cultural, artistic, educational, and historical activities have been planned. Now therefore, I, Lori Henry, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim November 2021 as National American Indian Heritage Month in the City of Roswell, Georgia, and urge all of our citizens to observe this month and recognize our history with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. And do we have anyone here representing our American Indian Heritage Month? Well, this will be a great tribute to our Native Indian. The next item is the reading of a proclamation for Administration and Finance Appreciation Week. The week of October 25th, 2021 through October 29th, 2021 will be recognized as Administration and Finance Appreciation Week. And whereas the mission statement for the Administration Department is providing result-oriented communication, service, and innovation to our customers. The Administration Department currently operates with 68 employees. And whereas the mission statement for the Finance Department is to provide premier financial stewardship by effectively managing the fiscal activities of the city. The Finance Department currently operates with 32 employees. Now therefore, I, Lori Henry, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim the week of October 25th through October 29th as Administration and Finance Appreciation Week in the City of Roswell. I would also like to call upon all of our citizens to recognize the talents and dedication of our employees in these two departments who strive for excellence and provide the best customer service for our citizens. And I'm sure we have folks here from Administration of Finance. I know that we've got Mr. Fisher and, oh, people are in the back. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, but, well, I guess we won't have a photo op, but thank you, Mr. Fisher. And let's hear it for our Admin Finance Department. Thank you all. The next item on the agenda is our transportation process updates. Mr. Fisher.
Mayor Henry, we'll give it just for a second for the computer to come up so we can show this up on the screen. It's taking its time. So we have the process update report. We'll be doing that, as you're aware, each council meeting. And I have a couple of updates on some of the ones we reported last time, and then I have a couple of new reports for you. All right, so we'll start with on the first one. There's no changes to that. You will see the project management recommendation coming to. Don't know what that is. If anybody wants to know what the weather is going to be, if you looked quickly, you just saw that. I'm not sure where that came from. So the first one is the project management recommendation to make sure that there's project managers identified for every project. That'll be coming to you this Wednesday at the October 27th committee meeting. The second item that was on the list we talked about last week was a project progression, and that's making sure that we adopt SOPs to let everybody involved know what's coming up. The project manager specifically will be a part of that. We will have those SOPs done for you in March, as we stated last meeting, but I want to give you an update on that. The City of Roswell has met. We've started conversations already with PDP. That is the consultant that Gerard Davis used in their report. We've talked to them about incorporating their project progression document that you might have seen listed in the report into our SOPs. Along with that project progression process, we're also assessing our personnel, and this one will actually fit in some other recommendations as we go through later on. Assessing the personnel to complete the City of Roswell RDOT project management training that we talk about in the first recommendation, and then also the GDOT transportation certification process. So we're working through that and talking with PDP on who needs to be in the training and get the certifications to be able to meet their project progression checklist. The next item has no change to it. It's acquisition policy for low-value properties. You'll be seeing that Wednesday at the committee meeting to talk about what the levels of those purchases will be, and then after that discussion, a resolution will follow, and you'll see that at the November 8th Mayor and Council meeting for approval. The next item I want to report on is the acquisition of property checklist. There's no changes to that. We will have that at the November 17th RDOT committee meeting, working through that checklist right now to make sure that we have everything in order so that when property is purchased, there will be a specific order that we will follow in purchasing those properties. The agenda approval process is the next item. You will see that at the January committee meeting. That will be our defining what goes into the agendas, how they're reported out to you all so that we can give you accurate and timely information on projects as we move forward with them. So there's a new one that we added this time that we've started working on. It's called Project Reactivation, one of the recommendations from our consultants, and that's to validate the surveys and property information and determine if any design updates are needed due to any changes. Now, this reflects not only on past projects, specifically if there's projects that have stopped for whatever reason, and we go to reactivate those to make sure that there's been no changes to the properties, to the documentation, ownership, those kind of things. So we're working now on a case study is going on right now as we look at the Oxbow Road project. Mr. Skowski, myself, the transportation team are going through to look and see what is up to date, what's not up to date. You've seen some things in the reports that need to be dealt with. So we're working on those and developing procedures to meet the objective of understanding how to activate and reactivate projects. This is one of those that will also bleed over, fall over into really any project the city does. If there's any time lapse or any stoppages for whatever the reason might be, when we go to reactivate that project, we will have process in place to follow to make sure that everything is current and up to date as we restart the project. The next item that I want to mention is the reporting structure. Again, in trying to make sure that we're giving timely and accurate information to really any project that we deal with. This recommendation was our reporting structure should have expectations clearly set for each position and accountability measures in place for decision making. Mr. Skowski has assigned that one as the RDOT interim director, and is working on that right now. We've started that this week, prioritization and the allocation of the resources to any project as far as how it would be reported, prioritization and allocation of personnel, and also prioritization of the workload. All of that is being reviewed, and it will be initiated to establish expectations and accountability in all projects so that we're always giving that accurate and timely information. So those are the changes from last week to this week, just from a operational standpoint, not necessarily on these recommendations, but on the project as a whole. There's a lot of review going on, a lot of data collection going on to get a handle on where we're at so that we can go through a reactivation process, particularly on the Oxbow Road project, but if there's other projects, we can deal with those later to make sure that we're moving forward in a positive way and not backing up as we go. So we'll continue to not only spend time working on the current project, but we'll continue to work on these recommendations as we go forth with every one of them by the time we're done. Are there any questions on the report?
Council, have any comments or questions? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
Janet Russell, Roswell resident since 1973. I'm glad to see you're going to implement what our $110,000 investigative report about Oxbow has made you do. It makes me sad to think that we had to pay that much money to discover the major screw-ups from that project, but it doesn't surprise me. I don't know how else to say this, but the reason we ended up this way is because of a really toxic cocktail of arrogance, ego, and a touch of misogyny. The previous RDOT director, not Mr. Skalski, I wish him all the luck, and I'll give him a bottle of Tums because he's probably going to need them. They have disregarded the ideas of the people that actually live where the projects are and who are directly impacted by them. I'm a good example. I've lived on my corridor for 48 years. I know every square foot of that property, and I am ignored. Thank you very much, go away. We know more than you think we do, and stop giving carte blanche to people that pretend they know it all, because they don't. It's ego, it's arrogance, it's misogyny. I am recalling that we paid a consultant a few years ago to assess our historic assets, and he did a great job. And then we turned around and you guys approved the Historic Gateway project, which totally destroys the Historic Gateway, which was deemed the most beautiful and unique entrance to any city in Metro Atlanta. Again, because you guys know it all, or RDOT did, and you just went like little blind monkeys following the RDOT guys. They didn't know it all. Their job is to move cars without regard for the quality of life that a project impacts the people that live there. You need to all get out of your little bubbles, and I mean all of you, get out of your little bubbles. Anyone who says that Highway 9 is a great example of streetscapes and how they contribute to businesses obviously hasn't walked where I live, because if I wanted to live in Yemen, I would move there. There are no sidewalks, there are broken timbers, there are piles of stuff, there are orange cones. It's unacceptable. And that this cost us $110,000 that we know of, because we're still not through with the report, is just an indictment of everyone who ever approved these projects for all these years. It's just, I don't even know what to say. But you need to take into consideration that you have well-informed, well-intentioned people who are long-term lifers here. They're not the ones that blow through it in 6 months, they move on to another place to live. They're invested in this community with their lives and their contributions, and you need to respect them by giving them a quality of life. They don't necessarily live in subdivisions and country clubs. They live in real neighborhoods like where I live. One house is from 1840, 2 are from 1930. The newest one was built 3 months ago, right across the street from 2 Habitat houses. I can assure you that not one of you lives in my neighborhood. So all I can say is thank you, Mr. Fisher, for this, but I've been talking about project management and offering ideas for 10 or 15 years. Can I send you a fee for being a consultant all these years? Because I have answered more questions than you people even knew to ask.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? I'll bring it back to council. Council, additional comments, questions? Thank you all. And the next item that we've got this evening is number 3 from the consent agenda. And I will hand this over to Councilmember Hall. It was at her request that we pulled it.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. Mr. Fisher, could you present on the item again and maybe update all of us on some of the information that we discussed as far as the scope of the project?
Sure.
Thank you.
So this item is the approval for either the mayor or interim city administrator to sign a contract with Bureau Veritas Technical Assessments. They are the company that was the most responsible company for our RFP that we set out for facilities condition assessment, which is a program that we've been doing now for 10 years. And then also a new part of the program, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan. That plan is something that the city has needed to do for quite a while. Really, since 2010 is when it first came out for Title II of the ADA Act for certification for a lot of federal funding that we do. And so we have asked the companies that responded to look at that along with our FCA and then the facilities condition assessment. So that covers all of our city government buildings. The first year that we did it, we got most of our buildings in. There was a few that we had missed out on when we came around the second time for the refresh after the first 10 years. We did a refresh on that and put in a lot more of the smaller buildings, maybe some concession stands and things like that that were included with Rec and Parks, some of the shop buildings, some of the storage buildings. So we have all of our buildings covered pretty much at this time through the process. And then we have added a lot more infrastructure this time, particularly in Parks and Rec that have to do with their trails, their fields, the turf fields, their lighting, their fencing, just any of their infrastructure, irrigation systems, a lot of those things that aren't necessarily buildings, but things that need to be on a regular maintenance program so that we can keep them updated. So what we found with the FCA program is it allows us to be able to schedule and to budget our maintenance. So we're not And I'll give you an example of a roof system. If we have some roof leak, what this analysis does is it's a life cycle analysis. There's things along that life cycle that need to be done to maintain these facilities. And so those are scheduled in every year. Every year at the budget process, I come to you and ask you to fund FCA. That's the items, the projects that are identified in this project, and then you fund those. So for instance, I'll go back to a roof. If we have a roof leak in a building that needs a repair, we'll look at FCA and see where that roof is in its life cycle cost. If it's got 5 or 6 more years before that life cycle calls for that roof to be replaced, we're going to go ahead and repair that roof right now because we still have a lot of life left in that roof. If that same roof in repair came up and there was leaks in the roof and we went and checked in our FCA and we see that that roof is supposed to be replaced this year or next year, we're not going to fix the leak. We're going to go ahead and get that roof replaced because we want to get as many years out of an asset as we can, but we don't want it to nickel and dime us to death either. So when it comes time to replace, we replace it, or we do maintenance along the way. So the FCA takes in wall covering, floor covering, roofs, HVAC, all of our mechanical systems, all of the equipment that we have as far as infrastructure with bathrooms and things like that, facilities that we use. So all of that is figured in with the life cycle, and then we maintain that during the year. Each year. If there's a repair that needs to be made, those repairs are done outside of maintenance. Yeah, there's things along the way that break. And when they break, we repair those. And we have different funds. It's not necessarily part of the FCA program. So the other item that is that goes along with the FCA, and this company handles both of those, is to get compliant with the Title II of the Americans with Disability Act. And that's what we're also presenting in this particular packet is this same company has an arm that does ADA analysis, and they have machines that they actually take out and look at your sidewalks and look at your ADA ramps. They look at your buildings, so they go through all of the ADA and then give you that same plan so that you can stay compliant with that. And that's important for a number of reasons. The number one is accessibility to public facilities and public buildings. We want everybody to have the ability to come in to our buildings and our facilities and use them. There's another thing that's important with that too, is we try to maximize the citizens' dollars and our dollars, and to do that, we have a lot of federal funding. Federal funding also balances on whether or not you're compliant with a lot of their certifications, and one of those is an ADA transition plan. We've been putting the official plan off for a while. The time has come to where we've got to get that so we can make sure that we're compliant, and that's why it's on here also. So the total price for all of this to be done is $572,610. It's been approved in our last budget. We have the funds available. So this item is to ask for a motion to approve Bureau Veritas technical assessments as the company to do the FCA and the ADA transition plan.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Council have any questions? Councilmember Palermo.
Goes. Thank you, Mayor Henry. Thank you, Councilman Judy. So for this item, again, I recognized a similar issue at the last meeting. This was put on the consent agenda, although it was not unanimous at the committee. So there was not consensus on this item. And I believe a big part of the discussion was the fact that we have over, $500,000, almost $600,000 towards assessment, so basically a plan for how we're going to fix and maintain things. When I believe there was question or discussion, could or should some of that over $500,000 go towards actually fixing and addressing some issues? So again, disappointing that this was on the consent agenda. But my bigger point is what I've learned today as more information has come out. Sounds like there are separate arms and separate parts of the assessment, being ADA one of them, separate from facilities and other aspects. And that's where, to me, it seems like the ADA one I would think is probably pretty urgent, whereas in the other aspects of it, this is where I'd really want to know with staff, the remaining, whatever the amount separate from the amount going towards the ADA transition plan, are there any clear urgent needs where some of that $500,000 could and should be going that would be a quicker and more impactful benefit to the residents than just spending the almost $600,000 on really a plan and assessment on how we'll start to address things. So those are all my comments.
Additional comments from council? Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. So, several things here. Number one, as I can see, and I look back to 2015, when the same study was done, the cost in 2015 was $161,486. Today, if we take the ADA apart, which is $200,000, means that the building inspection is $372,609, which represent over 2 times what was paid almost 6 years ago. So that is my first concern, the cost, more than double. So the other thing is the proposal. Seems like we received only 2 proposals and one not highest ranked proposal reasons to deny. So only 2, which I think that there might be several companies in the country that provide this service. We receive only 2, and only 1 really qualify for a total amount of $572,609 with 20 cents. So, so then, if we take apart the ADA component, which is approximately $200,000, we are $372,609, which, today we were provided a list of all the items included, all the buildings and facilities and infrastructure that will be covered, which is pretty much the same as was in 2015. So I have a hard time to understand how we went almost 2.3 times the cost in 6 years. And I know it's a new company, but still, buildings are pretty much the same. We added some of the rec and park extra infrastructure, so which I would like to also have a detail of what is that added that was not considered in 2015. So, I think that, $372,000 would be a great investment to keep our buildings, some of our buildings, especially our parks and rec. So, again, if we need to pay that much money, or we don't even know the difference with the extra items that we added in 2021 compared with 2015, are those items justified more than double the cost or not? I mean, it's a lot of things that need to be explained to the public, so I would like to hear more about it during this discussion. Thank you.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. And I also am familiar with these type of assessments just in a homeowners association and other organizational structures. And I understand you can get different scopes. You can order different levels of scope on these. My question was, with respect to the scope, we're asking for current market values based on current zoning as well as highest and best use as one of the items. And I understand just from a separate discussion that Director Luckett is also doing a inventory of properties and perhaps getting that information, and if that would be an opportunity to maybe save some money on an FCA and not have them include that, if he's doing that, on probably covering all of the properties in addition to other properties that are unimproved that he's doing the inventory on. So that's mine.
Thank you. Can you remember all of those questions that you received from
I think-
council concerns?
I think I have a lot of them down.
And then I also have noticed that Mr. Leatherman looks like he would like to speak as well, so.
So to start off with, yeah, you're right, there is a lot of different scopes. We actually took that one out, so we've already gotten the credit for that one. Because that was on the original scope. We went back during our negotiations and said, we don't need that for the current value for the highest and best use. So we got credit for that, and that's what put us within our budget. So they did take that one out.
It's still listed as part of the scope.
It's no longer in there after we did the negotiations on that. So thank you for mentioning that. If it's in there, I'll make sure that that's out because we did negotiate that one out. As far as the cost of what we're doing today, more than doubling of the 161 and some odd cents, there's several things that kind of play in that role. The first, when we refreshed the FCA the last time in 2015, it was still with the same contractor. So it was strictly just a refresh. They had all of the base information. They were able to go back in, look at anything that they wanted to go back and look at, anything that we might have changed or what the updates were. So it was a full refresh of the program, but it was the same contractor, so they didn't have to mobilize near what they had to before. So it was actually a very low price that we got in 2015. We were very happy with that. That contractor is no longer in business. So this time, we had to go out for bids on a full bid, and the contractor that we have now certainly isn't going to look and take at face value what another contractor had done. So this is a full-blown analysis that they'll be coming in and doing as opposed to what we did back in 2015. It is absolutely the same buildings. We're quite proud of that. It took us a while. It took us 2 goes at it to make sure that we got the buildings in. So the buildings haven't changed. You're right, Councilmember Zapata. It's basically all the exact same buildings. What has changed are 2 things. The ADA, which you've seen, which is actually $240,000. I think you had mentioned approximately 200, and that is correct. It's $240,000, but what we added into that was a whole lot of infrastructure that we haven't ever looked at before, but that we absolutely feel like is important to maintain. I'll give you some examples of what some of the infrastructure is. It's mainly out of the rec and parks. They've been asking for this type of program for quite a while. So there's things like athletic field fencing, the netting, the scoreboards. All of that has maintenance that can be done on a regular basis, but it also have life cycle costs. If we have an issue with the scoreboard, much like we do at the roof, we can repair it. Or if it's about to hit the end of its life cycle anyway, and we see that, we can just replace it, pull it up in this program and get it taken care of. But we don't want to replace it too early because then it still has life left and we've just basically gotten rid of something we can still use. So there's handrails, which is part of the ADA, sidewalks, which is part of the ADA. We have irrigation systems out there that can be maintained and put onto our scheduled maintenance. Certainly our light poles can be done that way. Our tennis courts, we had some of the surfaces already in the last FCA. We want to get all the tennis courts in there with their surrounding fencing. Parking lots and driveways that are not tied to facilities right now. The only parking lots and driveways are the ones that are at the buildings. But we do have other parking lots and driveways that go around in other parts of the park. We want to include retaining walls, decks, docks, and bridges. We didn't get into some of that. That's all stuff that needs to be maintained. We need to know what the life cycle are, and we need to know what year to do those in so that when we come to you all during that budget process, we're not just asking for some money, or we're not just asking for whatever the project is that we just think ought to be the project, but we have it back. We have the data that we need to say, here's what we're looking for in this budget year, and Director Leatherman can come to you and say, here's the things that, based on our schedule, we need to do right now, and he doesn't have that ability to do that. And then, of course, benches, tables, and grills, backflow devices, something we can put in here so that we know that we're compliant with all of the backflow devices that we have. Water fountains, our stormwater infrastructure, plumbing and electrical, which is already in for the buildings. But again, we find with rec and parks that some of that is in infrastructure that goes to other things like some of our fields and concession stands. The spray grounds, one of the things that we didn't speak of originally is the pool. Making sure that that pool is updated and maintained as it should be so the bottom doesn't drop out of that thing one of these days, and then we're back fixing it. Signage, the dog parks, our shade structures, some of our boardwalks and our trails can be put on there for maintenance as we go along rather than waiting until something breaks. As you all know, in your own lives. When something breaks, it's going to at the most inopportune time, and then that facility or that infrastructure is down until you can get it fixed. We don't want to get that far. We don't want to react to that. We want to be able to maintain it along the way and make sure we're giving it everything we can for our citizens to keep everything that we have up and keep it in the standard that we want. And another thing we have is our playground equipment along with our outdoor exercise equipment. Those are all the things that they will do an analysis on, either through manufacturer's information. They will come out, they will visually inspect each one of these and put this into the system, which will allow Director Leathman, as I said, to have a program in place, not only for his buildings, a program for our folks to not only have for our buildings, but then also for the infrastructure and for the ADA. So the FCA component went together because that company does FCA, and we just asked for that price, and they put those together. We added those items in there, and then the ADA, that company does that also, a little different division, so we got a price from them for the ADA transition. That's the only reason that we have two prices. It just happened to be from two divisions from the same company, so they were able to do it all, and they did the price based on coming in and doing all this work. I think that was kind of covering what was brought up so far, at least the notes that I had.
Well, and I think you did a really good job clarifying that. I'm assuming he covered everything for you, Mr. Leatherman. Does council have any follow-up questions of Mr. Fisher? Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is just a little bit different than the ones that have been asked. We've had a couple of projects come forward over the last few months where we've only had one bidder that makes it through the process. Are we doing something different in our purchasing and procurement than other cities? Is it market-driven? Is there something else that's causing us to wind up with either one or very few qualified bidders? So that's my first question. My second question, as I go through this, I see things like 2,000 curbs and just the magnitude of, however many miles of trail, of boardwalk, et cetera. Have you done any work to kind of give us an idea of the estimated hours that are going to go into this to kind of give us an idea of rate per hour? Because we can use that to compare to, if we have our own people do it. And so $572,000 sounds like a lot, but I'm not sure it is when I see the magnitude of what's going on, and if I kind of understood, the estimated number of hours.
No, and that's a good question. I have not done an estimate. I have not gone back and looked at the number of hours. I can't recall whether we got estimated hours or not, but if we did, I will go back and I can certainly look at that. You are correct, the magnitude is huge. Just in the ADA alone, when they go through and look at the sidewalks, they actually have a machine that takes pictures, if I recall, every 10 feet. And it takes all the measurements, and it knows exactly what so they'll have a database of all of that. So it's enormous in what comes out of that. To answer your question about only 2 responses, it has nothing to do with the FCA. It has nothing to do with the city of Roswell. This is a phenomenon that we're seeing in everything that we order. No matter what it is, labor is hard to find. Contractors are hard to find. They can't find employees, so when they get work, they're working. And they're stretched thin. We got 2. One of them was better than the other one, so we took that approach. These guys, it's not like we settled for something. They look like they're the best in the industry anyway. So we're very happy with that, and we're happy that we got them in budget. But to say that we keep, those days when we got 10 or 15 contractors that were looking for work, that's not today, and that's not here. That's in any project that we're doing. We're going back and we're closing or saying no and rebidding and trying again to try to get more of a response. I sat in a meeting today about another RFP that we just sent out, and we got like 1 response, and it's just not enough. And we didn't really like that one. This particular one, we were fortunate we got a good contractor out of the 2 that we got. I think one of them would have been the winner anyway. But we're finding that across the board, it's very difficult.
Thank you, Michael.
Additional questions, comments? Yes, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. My struggle is we have an FCA, and no doubt it's appropriate to update them. On the list, we have 125 items that are going to be assessed, and 17 of those are new, so they would be added. My question is, are we better served, I mean, moving forward with the ADA piece and then taking the $332,000 and putting it to maintenance, parks, things that are critical right now where we were short funds before? Because the existing FCA of a majority of these over 100 items are still there, and they may have had a 10-year life 5 years ago, and perhaps the life is 5 years now. Can we wait 2 more years or another year before we order an FCA to tell us whether it's got a 5-year life or 4-year life? That's the discussion, or that's my question.
Councilmember Hall, if I will, yeah, we can do that. The longer we wait, the less accurate any of the information is. They give us information out to 10 years. Anything over 5, we don't know. There's been a lot of changes. We want to add a lot of things to it. I would tell you the value of the $332,000 or $331,896. We could use that money for a lot of things. The highest and best use is to put it into this plan so that we know what we're doing as directors in coming to you and saying, here's what we need to do, because otherwise we're just kind of picking and choosing. We can use the FCA that we currently have. I would tell you the dollar amounts certainly aren't accurate anymore, particularly after the last year that we've had, 2 years that we've had with COVID. So that's, I don't know that I can bring you any, I don't know that the information is really that good other than the buildings are in there, and we could look at what those things are. We wouldn't have brought it this year if we didn't think this was the year to try to do the refresh. So yes, we could do a refresh at any time within the 10 years, but I don't know that the information is worth much today.
Yes, Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just want to comment that I think this is just a very comprehensive listing of all of our assets, and I really appreciate the insight that this is going to give us into the maintenance that's needed, particularly with the addition of the parks, particularly East Roswell Park and Don White Park and some of the parks that I know I frequent pretty often in my area. So I really appreciate the insight that this is going to bring forward to help us, better direct funds and better direct maintenance and improvement funds. And then also a comment about the ADA transition and implementation plan. This is something that's also required, right? As a federal requirement, it's something that we need to have on file in the city. So, right. So that's really not even something that's up for negotiation. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Judy.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Fisher, probably Mr. Leatherman as well. I think you just said it. You wouldn't have brought this to us this evening if it wasn't necessary at this point in time. In the future, from what you said early on in your presentation, I feel like this might save us more money in the long run over the 10 years or however long we keep it before the refresh, because we're doing unneeded repairs in some places where we would instead replace because we know the life cycle. So on these buildings, there could be a very expensive repair that we did, but we should have actually replaced it instead. So that's what this report will tell us moving forward over the next number of years, and we will actually save money by doing what we needed to do rather than putting a Band-Aid on it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I've seen, we've been doing this one now. We've been doing the FCA program for 10 years. It was a priority when I started here 12 years ago, and a priority that said, we're going to do this, we're going to get it done. And so we did. We've seen it going on for 10 years, and I would not be up here asking for $500,000 if I didn't think we got more than that out of it. Not only does it help us know to whether or not we need to replace something now, but the maintenance involved with that helps us to make sure we can get to the life cycle. If you leave something alone long enough, it's going to break, and then you're going to replace it. What we want to do is maintain it. This helps us with the schedule to maintain our facilities, maintain our equipment, to get us to that life cycle. And then towards the end, if there is a major repair that needs to be done, we'll look and see where that life cycle ends. And if it's within a year or two, we will manage the project. It's not, or the program, it's not necessarily cut in stone, but we're not going out more than a year or two. If something is broken and it's a big enough repair, we can replace it at that point. But yes, sir, the value of coming out of this program, we've done it for 10 years, and every single year we've been before you all with the confidence in saying, here's the money we need, we know exactly what we need it for, and this is what we need to be doing. So that's how we use the program.
And my other question is this is a comprehensive review of all these things on this list, and we'll add more. So when you say it's the wrap building over at the park, it's the parking lot. It's the doors, it's, you know, it's everything that comes with it. So when we go to order stuff, we can order stuff in bulk, knowing that the years we're approaching end of life on those things. Ordering asphalt, this, that, and the other. So this program here, I understand it's expensive. But looking at this, I would like y'all's opinion, in that, your professional opinion, that this in turn will allow us to plan properly and save money in the long run.
Well, yes, sir, that is my professional opinion. It's why I'm up here. As an administrator, I like it in a box. I like a plan. I like to know what I'm doing, and I follow that plan. So when I come to you all, here's what it is. This is absolutely worth it. And like I said, for the last 10 years, we've been following this, and we're very confident in the budget process. When we come to you, here's what needs to be done, and here's the plan we're following. We don't go in and pick and choose. Now, last year, yes, we had it was a much different year. But even at that, we continued working the plan with the funds that we were provided, and we haven't stopped yet. So by the end of this year, we might be close to that. But this will allow us to come to you during the budget process and say, here it is. My professional opinion is this is exactly what we need, so that we're not just picking and choosing whatever projects, because ultimately something is going to fall behind. This way, it's everything. And you're right about the ordering process. Our building ops manages the program for everybody. And when they first look at that at the beginning of the budget year, we try to get the different trades in at the same time as much as we can to say, hey, we got these electrical things we have to do, and we start looking at those, and these plumbing things. So there's some that may not be ready yet, but for the most part, we try to bring all the trades together and get it all in one time to do what savings we can, because we can manage the program.
Well, thank you. For me, just looking at this holistically with the whole program, the bulk ordering, the end-of-life stuff, and putting our whole inventory in here now moving forward, is it expensive? Yes, but listening to you this evening, I believe we'll save it tenfold in what we're looking at here this evening. Thank you.
Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have the proposal here from 2015 from Applied Management Engineering, Inc. So my question is, from this 2015, how many recommendations have been already accomplished and implemented and get it done? And how many are still to be done on this report of about 30 buildings that were assessed and planned in 2015? So the other thing is, I don't understand why if you're why you didn't ask to get a quote of what exactly the same we have in 15, and then you can ask them to quote another adding like another 17 items. Because maybe some of these items, we don't know how much it's gonna cost additionally based on what 15 had. We don't know this additional on 2021 will cost. We don't know. It's all mixed up. So there might be some things here that you don't need to pay to know that you have to replace a wood post on the lighting of the baseball field that is recommended to have now concrete and maybe LED lights, or replace a bench where the parents of the kids start watching the baseball game that is all wood, rotten, and maybe with splinter in there, to replace with a new aluminum or other. You don't need to pay for that. You just need to walk around the parks. So, again, by not opening like the 30 buildings that they were assessed on a plan in 2015, you're not comparing here apples to apples, and it's hard. And I don't know why it was done like that, make it more complicated to take a decision if it's a good bid or not. The only bid, the only approved bid, again, I'm surprised that not many more companies bid, and I see kind of like a pattern on that. So, again, make it very difficult. The ADA 240, I think nobody has a doubt here. Nobody has a doubt to support that. It's out of the discussion, the ADA 240K. But the rest is not clear. It's not clear when you see 2 times the cost of what was done 6 years ago, and without even clear understanding how much will add these 17 new items added up to the 2015, it's hard. It's very hard. I don't know what was done like that. Was no more clear approach to get a bid on this project.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So, yeah, I mean, I certainly, I think there's consensus. There's no question on the ADA portion. So I think really the discussion is on that remaining 320,000 or so on the needs assessment. And I really see this as a plan. And, you know, it's a plan on how we're going to address, you know, fixing different things that need to be fixed. And I think it is important to plan. But a big issue that I think Roswell has is we invest a lot in plans and then we don't actually execute and complete them. To Councilman Zapata's point, you know, for that 2015 plan, have we perfected that? Have we addressed all the needs in it? And I hope that's the case. But I didn't see that full information and explanation. And so as I look in this, even just for some samples, there was one just sticking out to me, which was, so for, let's just use it as an example, Grimes Bridge Park. And it says, you know, that there's handball, picnic areas, playgrounds, soccer fields, and softball fields. So this is one of many things that, of course, we would spend this $320,000 for this group to assess. Should it be replaced? When does it need to be replaced, repaired, et cetera? And my issue here with $320,000 going towards a plan is the fact that we have immediate needs. So Mr. Leatherman had presented at, I believe, committee and possibly even a council meeting when we were looking at other some different aspects where there were immediate needs that had to be addressed immediately within Parks and Rec, and I think that's absolutely the case. I understand there's a lot of things within Parks and Rec that needs to be addressed immediate. So I guess my issue is we're not addressing those immediate needs, but we are spending money on another long-term plan that we don't currently have all the funding to address. So that's where I just have some concern on the timing. And what I'd love to do is, yes, this plan is important. Yes, I support this plan, but I'd rather support this plan when I know we've addressed all of our immediate needs. And $320,000 could go towards immediate needs that would show immediate benefit to taxpayers.
Councilmember Judy.
I'd like to ask Mr. Leatherman just if he could address that statement, if there are immediate needs that he'd rather have at this point in time, or if this plan is what he'd rather spend the money on, because I think that's where we are right now in this process. And if he says, hey, look, there's immediate needs that we need right this second, then by all means. But if this plan is what he thinks he needs immediately, then I think we need to listen to Director Leatherman.
Thank you, and I appreciate the dialogue and the conversation. You know, in addressing, I think, Councilmember Palermo's point is that we have a lot of immediate needs. I wouldn't discredit that or even challenge that. The challenge becomes is those immediate needs are becoming emergencies because we don't adequately plan for what our deferred maintenance is happening in our park facilities. And that's really the challenge that I see coming into this position 3 years ago, is we have been very reactionary to our deferred maintenance in our 1,000 acres of park facilities. We wait till a pothole is almost the size of my Camry at MS3 at Roswell Area Park until we're able to fill it in because we haven't repaired the parking lot when it's beyond its useful life. And that's the challenge that we're in the middle of right now, is this push and pull between what's an emergency, and you're absolutely correct, we have some emergencies in our facility right now. But I'll be here in another couple of months. And then again, next year, with these emergencies, if we don't start to look beyond the first year of the next 365 days into the next 5 years and say, what's coming our direction that we need to be anticipating and planning for? When you look at our budget requests from my department, it's about $1.2 million of line items. There's about 22 of them. And they start with the 385 plan. Well, the 385 plan used to be the 300 plan. And the 300 plan didn't have enough money in it, so we did the 385 plan. And then we added the 100 plan because we didn't have enough money in the 385 plan. Then we added the light pole plan, then we added the trails plan. Then we added a handful of other line items in our budget to respond to emergencies that we knew we didn't have enough resources for. And that's really been the challenge that I've been wrestling with as the department head and the director, is we're making good quality recommendations for the emergencies that we have in front of us, things that break. And great example is we had staff this last weekend with a contractor down at Old Mill Park repairing the boardwalk system because the structure had rotted out from underneath it. And we found it by pulling a couple of boards out that we knew that we needed to replace. And we realized that the structure underneath also needed to be done. Had a great contractor out there on an emergency basis to handle that problem so that it could be accessed by the community. The intent of this plan is to assess those types of infrastructure needs so that we can be here before you looking at 3 and 4 years down the road to understand what are the big items that are coming. We know that our pool is 40 and 50 years old. We know that there's likely somewhere between $150,000 to $500,000 of infrastructure in that pool alone that we need to look at. The question becomes, have we run its useful life, or do we keep dumping $125,000 into that pool over the next 3 years, or do we have to have a different approach to it? The answer right now is, I don't know. And that's very uncomfortable for me as a department head. I want to be able to give you certainty of what the useful life is of our equipment, of our infrastructure needs, so that we can have that plan moving forward. So there's no question, we funded the $385,000 2 weeks ago. We're putting that money to work on those emergency items right now. But we know that we have some moving forward in the next 6 months, the next year, the next 3 years that we want to use this assessment for in order to advise the council on what you can expect in investment in our parks and facilities moving forward with a level of certainty greater than what we have right now. So I hope that answers the question.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. And so in that committee meeting in room 220, the immediate needs represented greater than the 385,000 or so that we had just approved 2 weeks ago. And so again, that's where my concern is. And again, yes, I absolutely want to plan, and we have major maintenance issues that we're underfunding it. I think that came up with a presentation during the millage rate discussion, where I really wanted us to move back to the rollback rate. And what we had seen in comparing to neighboring cities was we had higher annual budgets than most neighboring cities, but we actually invested less in capital improvements than neighboring cities. And so my concern is, and my issue is, that we have somewhat of a spending problem where we're not directing enough money towards maintenance in general. And so, and that's something that needs to be done on an annual basis, and it's not being done on an annual basis. So I love the idea of getting this plan, but again, as I mentioned earlier, Roswell is great at paying for the expensive plans. We're not great at executing, and we haven't done anything to show taxpayers or even show staff that, yeah, we're both going to pay for the plan and execute it. Right now, I would assume staff, as well as the taxpayers, only realize that we'll pay for the plan, but what's the story with all those immediate needs that are still going unaddressed?
Additional comments from council. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Director Leatherman, there's 17 items that are on here that were not previously on the FCA. Would it be possible to just identify those 17 items and have those done as part of an FCA for the immediate year, and then update the rest of our FCA that was done in 2015? Because it's the 17 items that are a problem. The other FCA items we're presenting on, and they're still there. They haven't changed.
So the 17 items, and while they're 17 line items, they represent roughly 1,000 acres of parkland, 32 miles of trail, a number of infrastructure items. And so we added the entirety of the park facilities beyond our buildings. And that's the big difference in the change when you talk about the 17 items in this plan, is that the original FCA for the last decade has really been the 300,000 square feet of facilities that we have in our parks, and then the parking lots associated with them. But if you drive into Roswell Area Park, we'll just use it as an example since a lot of people visit that park, when you turn in from the stoplight onto the first chunk of asphalt road, that is not included in the FCA. So the entire driveway all the way up into Roswell Area Park until you reach the Bill Johnson Community Center has not been evaluated. And I'll just use an example. We were just there building a retaining wall on a relatively emergency basis because we knew that we needed to get it done before the next heavy rain season into this winter. Spent about $70,000, rebuilt a retaining wall that used to be done with railroad ties. We had a contractor in there with concrete work. What we did not do as part of that is we did not do any of the sidewalks. We did not do any of the parking lot areas when we had a contractor mobilized. By layering these plans on top of each other, we would have the ability to look at the useful life of the asphalt and the concrete, as well as the ADA access, all at the same time, along with my retaining walls, and mobilize a contractor to solve multiple problems instead of just reacting to the one that we have at that moment in time, which was the retaining wall. That's the intent of putting all of these together from a parks perspective, so that as we're looking at the utility, not only of the planning effort, but also of our contracting and procurement and purchasing process, we can make sure that we're streamlining those so that we're bidding projects on a holistic basis, solving more than one problem at a time, ideally.
Additional comments, questions from council? Yes, Councilmember Tizer.
Yeah, just one quick thing that struck me when you said that, Director Leatherman. This year, we're doing a significantly larger amount of repaving of our city streets. And if I remember right, because we were able to bundle it using the state low-interest loan that we got, I think if I remember right, we're effectively getting about $1.2 million of work done essentially at no charge because we were able to bundle it together. So this concept of bundling is, of projects is interesting to me. So you're saying that if you knew you had 3 sidewalk projects and 3 parks that needed to be completed, you'd potentially mobilize one contractor.
Correct. Not only that, but if we also knew that the asphalt needed to be done, we would be able to do the concrete, the asphalt, and even potentially a retaining wall at the same time, and potentially multiple parks. The challenge is right now that we're just responding to the things that are broken. So the first thing that's the biggest emergency, that's what you see on your budget recommendations and requests.
Councilmember Tizer, that's exactly what we did with the city parking lot. When the last time we came in and sealed it, we waited until the city was doing their regular contract. We got in on the same pricing, same contractor, and he came in and took care of that for us. So we did it all at the same time. Matter of fact, when we had the inspector come out and look to see what everything was, he looked at that, whether we needed, the FCA said to replace. As he went in and looked at the base, there were only a few places that the base was bad, we needed replaced, and we did it all through the same city contract because we knew during that year we were going to be doing that, and we could work with them to get it in all under the one contract.
Yes, I guess my challenge to you all would be, as you look forward in that process, if possible, track to see if you wind up with in excess of $332,000 worth of savings. So in essence, you could probably put a metric on this and know exactly whether you've gotten 100% or 50% of the total value, which then answers council members Zapata's question also.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Director Leatherman and City Administrator Fisher for all the information. Just a quick budget procedure question. I just wanted to confirm a couple of things. This item was included and approved in the FY22 budget, correct? So this amount was. And then we're going to be looking at mid-year budget in the next couple of weeks, I assume. And so my understanding is that there are some additional funds that we can look at towards allocating to some additional park maintenance projects. Is that correct?
If there's things that may need to be done right away, we have already looked
That
at
are
those, and those will be
priorities.
coming to you, yes.
Right. So optimistically, we are just, we're out using the funds that have already been budgeted towards this assessment. And then looking forward, we do anticipate that we will be able to fund some additional park maintenance in the next, in the next half of the year, right? Okay, all right, great, thank you.
And the timing on this should work pretty well, because we'll be done with this around December, 1st of January.
Right,
Which is just
right.
when we get started for next year, FY23 budget. So
Okay.
we'll start the budget process with the brand-new analysis to be able to come to you with more accurate information for the next year's budget request.
Right, so we'll have a priority list, we'll know exactly the condition and where the funds most
You'll know
urgently need to
exactly
be
what the projects
directed.
are.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. So, it's a great point, Mr. Lederman just identified issues with the asphalt in one of the parks. We do have a transportation department. What they do is they know about asphalt. They know about roads. They know about condition. They know how to assess, or they should know. So why to pay someone else to tell some obvious things? And I can tell you another project, the East Roswell Dog Park. I don't need anybody, consultant, to come to tell me and my neighbors that this dog park need a big-time improvement. I don't need anybody to pay over $500,000 to let me know and my neighbors what need to be done on those parks. So if you just ask the users, if you ask your staff who work day and night the parks, they know what's going on. They know what needs to be done. So why don't we invest this money on what we can do right now and add to the 2015 whatever is identified. So we know what we need. And if it's a boarded road, I'm sure hikers, walkers, runners, bikers will tell you there's an issue there. So we don't need a consultant to tell us that it's an issue there. So if we don't take care of these things first, I don't know how can we be thinking about 5 years from now when we have issues right now that we need to fix and invest on. So, and I have it's a good idea. We're gonna see soon the mid-year review. So why don't we put this money right now to work on implementation of any of the projects that have been identified, and when the mid-year review comes with more money, we can think about funding the $332,609 for the other than the ADA that I'm willing to support tonight. The ADA portion, I'm willing to support right here, right now, tonight. The other one, I will prefer to listen to a staff recommendation because they are the ones who walk up and down all these parks. They know where the issues are, they know where they have to be an upgrade or maintenance or repair. So let's get these things done. And when we get the things done, then we can think about, okay, moving forward, we change the LED. The LED, the manufacturer will tell you, 10 years life. Okay, put in the system. This post at this park on this field is going to be for 10 years, the LED. Then we need to think about to replace it. So again, so many plans and so little implementation and allocation of budget, which is the main issue here, is allocate the money, the funds, to do what, many people know have to be done. You gave the example of the main park asphalt. I give you the dog park on East Roswell Park. So we know that is issue that we need to invest heavily on. So again, and this 2015, I don't know, we accomplished 100% of the recommendation already by year number 5 or 6 today. Well, 40% left, 30% left to implement. Let's work on that. I mean, we're going to keep, again, plan versus implementation and funds. It seems to be always the same disconnection. So I will support again $240 for the ADA tonight, the $332 allocated to parks projects, or if you have any building in bad condition that need to be invested right now, and then when the mid-year budget review come and there's extra 332, then maybe we can put in another plan for the city, an assessment plan. So that will be my position for what I heard so far from staff.
So I want to make a comment, because I've heard this a couple of times now, and I can clarify this pretty easily. This plan is not going to be a plan that's going to be written and sitting on a bench. This plan does not sit on the shelf. Every one of you know this. Every single year during the budget process, I come to you. I come to you with a dollar amount, and I come to you with projects that are identified in the FCA. And then you fund those projects, and then we work through the entire year to get those projects done. What projects are still in the process at the end of the budget year, we automatically roll those over to the next year. And I take those out of my request. So if our FCA says, I need $1.5 million for next year, and we've still got $250,000 of work that is ongoing that we haven't finished yet, I'm only gonna ask for $1.25 million. I'm not gonna ask for that additional amount. And every year we do that. And then throughout the entire year, we work month to month, week to week, managing this project. So I will tell you quite confidently that there may be some plans and some studies that go on in this city that may not get done. This is not one of them. This is a working document that your staff works every day. So there's no disconnect between the plan and the implementation and the funding. We get it every year, and we work that. I can't tell you what the percentage of items are because there's hundreds of items, and I just don't know. But what doesn't get done gets rolled into the next year. Those funds are taken down from my request. I don't request additional funds. We roll it over every year, and every year we manage this project. I just want to make that clear. I want you all to be confident in this, that if it is, I don't care if it's approved. If it's approved or not doesn't matter. Up until today, this plan gets worked, and it gets worked to great detail. And we will continue to do that, whether you fund just the ADA or whether you fund FCA or whether you fund all of it. This plan gets managed every day.
Additional comments, questions from council? Councilmember Judy.
Thank you, Mayor. This plan is not just parks, correct?
Correct.
It's every building in the city.
Correct.
We are going to see a donation here in a little bit from a company, local company here for our fire department, where a deck needed to be replaced. That's public safety, right? We have public safety issues. This, with the boards that you had the other day down at the, you know what? We could have looked at the plan and said, we've got this, we've got this. Now we might need to be able to bundle that and get a break on what we need in the emergency time. That's how this plan is supposed to work, correct?
Right.
Okay, so if we're just going to talk about parks and rec, which I think we should fully fund also, then we need to go down the whole of public safety, police, fire, immediate needs there, emergencies there. So this is not a game that we're playing here of what needs what. You came to us as the acting city administrator saying this plan is going to put us on even ground across the board so we know where our needs are from a facilities standpoint. Yeah. So what we need to do now is either we're going to pass this or we're not, but this is not just about Parks and Rec. This is about our police station, our fire stations, all, our admin buildings, everything throughout the whole city. So I know that this is turning into something that it shouldn't be because we're talking about the whole city with this plan. I want to make sure that that's where the conversation stays right here. Yes, there's emergencies in every department throughout the city that we need to fund at some point. If we don't fund this plan tonight, then fine. I actually think that if we don't fund this plan tonight, that we need to defer this plan this evening, pass the ADA, And when the new city administrator comes on after November 1, let him bring this forward because, you know, that's his ship. He wants to say, hey, look, here we are. But this is what I think we need for the city as a new FCA plan. And if that's the case, and this council feels more comfortable with that, then fine. But I think this needs to be looked at as the whole city and not just in silos.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. At committee in the last month, we all unanimously agreed that we wanted all departments to come to us 2 weeks ago and let us know all of their immediate needs as we were looking at considering money to the Arts Fund, which this council unanimously agreed to contribute to the Arts Fund. Parks and Rec was the one department that came to us and said, yes, here are immediate needs, that gave us an opportunity to compare. And in a different committee meeting in the previous month, that's where we did get to see different departments and what the needs were. And so I actually have a similar approach and similar thought process because, as I mentioned, I support going through this process. I support this plan. And Mr. Fisher, to be completely clear, I have full faith that you absolutely drive this forward and execute this on things like this. My issue is not in you and not in your department. Ultimately, it's the thing that you can't control, which is city council, and city council is who allocates funding and decides which plans get funded and therefore executed. So from a staff perspective, there's no question that you do a great job of really pushing for this. I don't think this council always funds the requests exactly as you request, but you absolutely do take it seriously and do drive this. But that being said, here's what I would support tonight. What I would support tonight is the money towards the ADA. We move that forward tonight. And then as for this, we go through the same exercise that we went through regarding the Arts Fund, because again, I don't like approving things in a vacuum. We know there's a lot of immediate needs, and I think we need to have this side by side and see those immediate needs. Are any of them creating health issues and dangerous issues and things that are greatly negatively impact our residents? And of course, my hope is the answer is no, but I don't have full confidence in that because, again, in that meeting 2 weeks ago where Parks and Rec came forward with some immediate needs, a resident got up and talked about, luckily, at one of our historic homes when someone fell through the back porch, they weren't really injured. But so what I'd propose is a short-term, I actually prefer probably a short-term deferral where this comes back with other immediate needs, and then we assess what makes more sense. We put the money immediately into this plan, so we look at the whole big picture, or we prevent any future risks to our residents and make sure that residents are benefiting from these hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're investing.
Additional comments, questions from council? Councilmember Tizer.
Just one last question, I promise. Is this kind of a process, this kind of a facilities assessment, standard operating procedure amongst cities? And is it, and tagged onto that, are our timeframes similar to what other cities would do between assessments?
I don't know how many other cities, if they do or not from a formal standpoint. I know that the references that we got from our contractor, there's a lot of them that do. Everybody has some kind of a process that they put into place. To have this formal plan is absolutely the way that we've been doing it, and it works for us. So, I mean, this is all this contractor does. So obviously there's quite a few that do it, but it gives you a formal process to follow, which is why we do it.
So I guess if this council is going to accept the ADA version and defer the other to a future committee meeting, then I guess what I would like to see is that answer and then the answer to, number of hours.
Yep,
I think it'll make a difference. I think it'll make a big difference if we realize, should this come back and say that based on the number of hours, right, it's much less than if we had, our entire staff stop and do it based on their cost. I think that would be just a real interesting way to handle that. I actually like that question anyway, so I went ahead and wrote that one down because I'd like to find that out. If that's where we're going, that's what I'd like.
Additional, Yes,
Just one more,
Councilmember
yes.
Wilson.
Thank you, yes. Are there economies of scale by doing them both together? I mean, it
Yes.
seems to me like, you know, if you're going to be looking at these facilities from an ADA standpoint and then going back a month later, looking at them from an overall perspective, that's ultimately costing taxpayers, both in dollars and in time.
Yes, I don't know, there may not be as much of an economy of scale for the ADA versus the FCA, but if we don't do both FCAs, I don't know what that savings will be to not do one versus the other. We had funded $150,000 in one budget, $200,000 in a budget, and then the remainder in FCA. But I don't know, because it's still the same transportation cost. They're just going to be in the same park. They're just not going to look at that bench. They're going to look at this building. So I'm not sure about that. But from an ADA standpoint, it's a different contract.
Right, but then we are theoretically asking them to go back again and
Yes, so
travel
there
the
will-
same mile
yes,
and look
there
at the
will be
same
costs
bench,
involved with
just
that.
with a different lens on. That
Yes.
just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
And I think I'd just add that a traditional FCA plan, even if you were just to lump those two together, it's not going to look at the ADA compliance and vice versa. It's going to look at, when you're talking about concrete and sidewalks, it's going to look at the useful life of the concrete and sidewalk, but it's not going to look at the approaches, the standard and scale in which ADA requires for adequate access. Vice versa, if you just do the ADA plan, all they're going to look at is the path of travel from the required parking spots to the front door, and they're going to stop. So you're not going to see any of the other parking lot issues, you're not going to see any of the other sidewalk issues, because that's not what they're looking for. And so you're going to create some very overlapping minute problems by not stacking them together, which is why when we were looking at all three of these plans and our desire to look at the park facilities, that we elected to recommend combining them so that we weren't traipsing through the same park or on the same sidewalk in the same building multiple times.
Thank you for that explanation.
Additional comments from council? Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. So, I mean, I think that is a legitimate question, and it's something where I'm optimistic that it would be a different skill set regarding the ADA than the FCA's. But, you know, again, knowing that I certainly support a plan like this, but have concerns without having the full picture of what emergencies and immediate needs we have, what I'd propose, if this council would support it, is tonight we authorize Mr. Fisher to go to them and basically confirm that we can do it separately, that the same price from the ADA to separate the FCA's, and if that's the case, then we authorize Mr. Fisher to move forward with the ADA one. And if they say, nope, that's going to change the cost of either of those, then it just comes back to council in 2 weeks, when staff has the time to actually bring back the other information that Councilman Tizer and I have been, the different information that I've been requesting and he's been requesting. So I propose that as a possible compromise.
Additional comments, questions from council? I'm going to go to the public in a minute, but I would like to point out that this was considered during the budget process. This wasn't created in a vacuum. So we have compared it to other needs throughout the city in our budget through extensive meetings at a staff level as well as the council level. Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
Janet Russell, same address as last 10 minutes, no, an hour ago. First of all, I feel like I'm living in a time warp, because 2 weeks ago, the problem of maintenance of parks was part of the budget. I feel like I'm just in whiplash here, because some of the council had voted to defund the maintenance of the parks and reduce it to $67,000. And I guess because it's election year, we needed theatrics, they magically found $310,000 that Mr. Leatherman had requested for maintenance of the parks. Mr. Zapata, I think, said something about, why would we not maintain our parks? We need to do it. They desperately need it. And through the magic of it all, you found the $310,000 because you were all on live stream. And I think that's just amazing, because now you're talking about maintenance of parks, but we're going to find out through $372,000 worth of discovery what needs to be done. But 2 weeks ago, prior to that, it wasn't important. All of a sudden, it's important because we were only going to give them $67,000, and I remember because it was $71,000 for the Oxbow Road report, which is now $110,000. I just find this all incredible. As Yogi Berra used to say, it's deja vu all over again. So I had a couple of questions when I saw this, and that just stuns me. But I've been called by some the village historian at this point because I've lived here longer than you guys have been in office. And I remember when we had no ADA law on the books, but this city stepped forward through the efforts of a Dr. Clint Lavender, who was a veterinarian who got ALS and suddenly became wheelchair bound. And it was because of Dr. Lavender that we made curb cuts all over this town before it was the law. I always acknowledge Dr. Lavender because he was quite a remarkable man to have that happen. And the city embraced it. I also think it's interesting that each one of you have said we have to approve ADA, absolutely, because no one here would want to appear to be against the ADA. Well, I'm not either. I'm the one that when the lady hit the bus stop on March 17th, 2018, and killed 2 people and permanently disabled one because she was looking at her phone, and the bus shelter was down for 11 months, and I approached Mr. Asenbrack and said, where's the bus shelter? And he said, we're waiting for an insurance check from the lady who's hit the bus shelter. And I said, what? We don't have insurance? And by the next day, Miss Love, who was then the city administrator, had them putting up a bus shelter. But when I drove by, the guys from the city of Roswell were putting the bench in the wrong place. They were putting it in the middle of the bus shelter. And I stopped, I said, hey guys, you're doing a good job, but it's in the wrong place. It must be 41 inches from the side of the shelter so a wheelchair can get in there. Oh, we're just doing what we're told. Okay, I called Miss Love. The next day, she sent me a picture. Is this better? Went to the side. I can give you a list of the ADA things that I have tried to make happen in our town. So you guys, when I say you're spending $272,000 for somebody to tell you what ADA is, you're wasting your money. You could pay a full-time employee who for half that price would walk this city and find every single ADA error or need in the city. $272,000 when I could tell you a whole bunch of things you could do for ADA. In addition to what they discover and what you paid a full-time person. As far as our parks go, Mr. Leatherman knows how I love our parks, but here's an idea. Instead of paying somebody to tell you what's wrong with the parks, get those guys and ladies that are down there working in it, and every time they find something that needs to be done, give them an incentive cash bonus. Don't pay it to some stranger, pay it to the people that are in the trenches. They see it when the toilets are broken. They see it when the concrete is broken. They know when the boards are broken. They know because they are hands-on. So why not reward them for being observant and proactive instead of reactive, which I heard that tonight. So I heard, Mr. Fisher, your list was amazing. You came up with quite an extensive list of everything that needed to be done or has been done. But if we have that list, I don't know why we need another list. We need to see what we didn't do last time. Have we compared what other cities pay for this same assessment or something similar? You know, we're 39 square miles. San Francisco's 38 square miles. Call them. ADA compliance, we have so many needs, and we don't need to be spending $272,000. Just hire a full-time person for 1 year and they'll tell you everything at half the price.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? I will bring it back to council. Additional comments, questions before I ask for a motion? Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, that was a brilliant idea to give an incentive to staff who recommend, like I said early on, you know, they walk around, they know what's going on in the field, they know what needs to get done. So instead of, you know, that was a good creative idea to recognize staff who bring forward issues that need to be addressed. So in terms of maintenance, repair, update, and upgrade. So again, I think there's better ways to invest this money. And again, all the public safety, all the departments are included in 2015 facility condition assessment. All of them are included here. I have copy of the 2015 done by Applied Management Engineering. So all the departments are. So it's just a matter of updating, upgrading what is in there. So, and I'm sure it's a lot of things still there that they are either work in process or need to start to get it done, the recommendation from 5 years ago. So, so I think that still, support the ADA, the expert. I don't know, the idea of having an employee, I don't know how practical and also from the liable point of view it is. But I do support this, and then the other one defer to the mid-year budget and see if there is money there, might be considered, or if not, we keep investing in already what we know, we the residents, we people at City Hall know that need to get done in, and I'm saying now that the parks, because it's what is added up. The parks added up 17 items. Everything else, this 2015 detail here, all the square footage, number of building, description, and and the usage of the buildings. So this is what I'm saying, the parks, because it's the new items included here that we need to understand if this is something that could be done by just walking around and taking note and putting in the system, or need someone to pay to tell you to change a stand for the supporters at the baseball field. So again, I will support only the ADA portion tonight.
Additional comments from council? Do I have a motion? There is not a department. However, Councilmember Hall asked it to be pulled, so I'll leave that with her.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm prepared to make a motion. And my motion will be to move forward with the ADA piece of this contract and to defer the full FCA until the mid-year budget.
Councilmember Judy.
Clarifying question, please.
Yes.
Councilman Palermo was talking about earlier about bringing this back in 2 weeks to the next meeting with the
Cost
departments
comparison?
bringing immediate needs. Is that not where we're going with this?
Also, I think that, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think someone was talking about the fact that if we're going to do a cost comparison on if we split these apart, is it the same amount of money, or will they come back and ask for additional funds? So, okay, so the motion does not include that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Zapata. Clarifying question?
So to be clear, this is just moving forward the ADA and not to a upcoming council meeting, but back to the mid-year budget. And separately, this is not directing staff to verify that that they can move forward if it remains the same price. That's my clarifying question.
That is correct. That is the motion.
I could amend my motion.
Do we have a second? Oh, yes, Councilmember Zapata. If you would like to amend your motion.
Yes, I would like to amend my motion that I find out if the price is the same, the cost is the same of the ADA piece and separating the FCA piece. Do I understand that correctly from my colleague? And if it is, they will move forward with the ADA piece, and we will defer the FCA piece until the mid-year budget.
So you're not asking for a follow-up by staff? Could you clarify your motion, please?
Okay, perhaps my motion is that staff is going to identify if the ADA piece, what the price is for separating the ADA piece and the FCA piece.
And when will they bring that back to council?
They will bring that back in 2 weeks.
And so this would bring this topic up again in 2 weeks for our consideration. And then, if and then it was determined to defer it to mid-year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I believe the motion is to go forward with the ADA aspect. Staff look at the cost comparisons on this. Staff comes back to council in 2 weeks with this, the remaining agenda item for our consideration. And at that point in time, this council will determine whether or not to vote on it at that meeting or to defer to the mid-year budget. Am I correct?
Can I hear from the colleagues just to verify? And I just want to make the...
Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, so just a clarifying question and maybe a clarifying, statement. I think there are way too many questions that we need information on before we vote to move ahead with anything. I am fully supportive of the ADA transition implementation plan, and I just want to get that on the record. 100%, I'm fully supportive of that, regardless of how I vote, and I don't want my words to be twisted in social media tomorrow that I voted against, that I am not fully 100% supportive of that portion of the plan. I also want to know that whatever funds are approved are using our taxpayer dollars to the best possible use, both in getting both of these assessments together and in giving us guidance on how we approach the mid-year budget. So I think kind of where I am right now is we have a lot of questions out there that we need answers to, and I would support a motion to bring this back in 2 weeks.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. So, I mean, I'd support bringing it back in 2 weeks. I also support the way I believe Councilmember Hall did the motion, which is I believe it's to move the ADA forward if staff confirms it's the same price if we break up the ADA and the FCA, in which case then just the FCA would come back. And then here's my clarifying question. Does the motion include that when staff does bring it back, they would bring back staff's immediate needs and different issues so that we can see those when comparing to the FCA cost?
Now, I'm getting really confused because we're directing staff, but we're not following through on that direction. We're directing them to look at something, and if A happens, then it'll come back, but if B happens, it won't come back. So I would highly suggest that we just write it in stone. Is it coming back in 2 weeks? Are we going to move forward with the ADA? Do you want to wait on the ADA for 2 weeks? How do you all want to handle this? Because we can't leave it up in the air. Councilmember Hall.
I'm sorry for the complicated motion. My motion is that we bring this back in 2 weeks with staff providing us information on the cost of ADA separated from the FCA, also with information of priorities from the departments.
So we have a motion for deferral until our next council meeting.
Yes.
And Councilmember Zapata, do you second that? Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it is Zapata, Hall, Wilsey, Palermo, and Judy. All those opposed? Councilmember Tyser, the motion carries. The next item, I apologize, we've got a good news story here, and you all have been sitting out there very patiently. So anyhow, thank you so much, and I'll turn this over to Councilmember Judy.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 6, public safety, approval to accept a Fire Station 5 deck material donation of lumber and supplies from the Loomis Supply Company toward the deck remodel project at Fire Station number 5. Chief Panino.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I hope this one's going to be quick and easy. This is in regard to the donation of building materials for a deck remodel at Fire Station 5 off of Hembry Road by Loomis Supply Company here in Roswell. And in attendance tonight is Mr. Rich Ayers from the Loomis Supply Company. There he is. So part of our ongoing maintenance at our fire stations, part of the Fire Station 5 remodel project is the deck on the east side of the fire station that oversees the retention area there, kind of behind the hospital. All the lumber needs to be replaced on the deck. When we were going out to get bids on having the project done, the Loomis Supply Company, Mr. Rich Ayers, heard of the project and came forward, pursued us, wanting to donate all the lumber and supplies to do the job. We're very appreciative of that. Staff recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Council have any questions? Councilmember Palermo.
Chief, thank you for a straightforward one, which I think we'll have a straightforward motion on. And really, thank you for the very generous support here. This is just really great. We really appreciate it.
Additional comments, questions from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Michael Martin, and I live at 9400 Coleman Road. And I was the contractor who went out and looked at the deck at the fire station. It's a perfect example, perfect story to share with you all. When I went out there and I measured up the handrails and the decking, I put my hand on the handrail, and the handrail moved right next to the grill, possibly where they would put their platters to hold their steaks while they're cooking on the grill. And I took photographs and I assessed the situation. I said, oh, there's a tree right here, dropping rain, water on the deck, water on the rail. Oh, this rail's loose too. Our men in blue could break their freaking neck with this loose rail. I told the firemen at the station, I said, I'll be right back. I went to my truck and I got some screws, fastened it, repaired it, called Loomis, asked for a quote, told them the story, what I just shared with you. When I hear you talking about postponing maintenance, deferred maintenance to the city, I would hate to see a citizen lean on one of the rails in our parks, have a slip, trip, or fall on one of the bridges, one of the sidewalks, one of the curbs, have a rescuer come and fall and succumb to the same situation because we've deferred maintenance, because we sat back, didn't move forward. You got booers, chewers, and doers. We elected all of you to be doers. When I sit back here and all I see is chewing and deferring and nobody making a decision, it's upsetting. To pull up the past of 2015 5 times. Really? Cut to the chase. Make a decision, move forward, look out for the safety of him, you, me, our children, and generations to come. Now, I'm glad to see that Rich made the donation. I talked to my wife about donating some of my labor costs if I'm hired to do the work, and I'd be willing to do so. I'd be willing to go through all my coffers and my sheds and donate any hardware, materials to keep the costs down. But we shouldn't have to be cutting the corners when it comes to life safety. Slip, trips, and falls. Our city attorney doesn't want to see lawsuits. The mayor doesn't want to have it on her record, and none of y'all want to have it on your record for reelection. I want to thank Matt Tizer for the time you've been with us. I understand you're stepping down. We're going to miss you, Matt. You've been doing a great job. I want to thank Janet Russell for all the years that she's come up here cracking the bullwhip on you guys. Hey, I've seen it many times. I haven't been here for a while. She hasn't lost her finesse. Keep up the atta girls and atta boys. Great idea to encourage the citizens. Hey, have a hotline. People can take a snap photo, send it on Facebook to someone in these departments. Hey, look, there's a pothole. FYI. Man, someone who watches that life safety like a 911 operator and looks at everything that we have in our city that needs repair, and encourage them with the Boy Scouts, getting an Eagle Scout. You know, there's certain things that these kids can go walk the park, right? We have our Youth Day parades. Let's have our kids in the community walk the park, make a list. We encourage them to be future safety patrol people. We encourage them to be future police, future firefighters, future health people, by having them think about slips, trips, and falls in our community. So I'm sorry if I've needled you a little bit, but it needs to be done. It's not just for us. It's for the future generations to come. So I've said my piece. I hope you'll make it okay for these guys to get some free donations of material. And when it's all done, I hope we can have a nice cookout, and you guys can all come over and see those guys cook on that new deck. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir.
Yes, Rich Ayers with Lummis Supply Company. As a business that we've been operating in Roswell for over 40 years, we appreciate all our first responders, especially our firemen. We hope you guys enjoy the new deck. Look forward to it. Thank you.
And I would like to thank Loomis for recognizing this need and coming forward. I appreciate it. Also, Mr. Martin, thank you for what you do in the city of Roswell, and thank you for recognizing this need as well. Chief Panino, additional comments?
No, ma'am.
Do we have additional comments from council? Do I have a motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Loomis and Mr. Martin. Motion to approve.
We've got a motion to approve by Councilmember Judy. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer and Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you again. I'm going to call the next item out of order. It's Environmental and Public Works. Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. Approval for the mayor and/or interim city administrator to sign an approval letter from GAEPD for the city of Roswell's surface water withdrawal permit renewal, permit number 060-1209-01. And as staff will explain, this is an item that has not come to committee, but they will explain why they've requested for this to come straight to the council meeting. Ms. Izzo?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to accept the terms of the draft water withdrawal permit renewal. This is a 10-year permit that expires on November 1st, 2021. We in the city have been working with the Georgia EPD for almost 2 years on the renewal of this permit. Due to staff changes at EPD and COVID-related challenges, they've had difficulty getting this permit into our hands. We were pleasantly surprised Wednesday evening when we received the permit, but unfortunately, we had missed the publishing date for this meeting. So we worked with legal, and they said that we could go ahead and put it onto this meeting for your consideration, and we're asking for your approval to sign off on this. They're asking for us to return this to them October 27th.
Council, have any questions? Is there anybody in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve item number 9.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Palermo. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wilsey and Tizer, again. All those in favor, please raise your hands, and it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
The next item is the city attorney's report. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item I have is approval of the Sixth Amendment to the current communications site lease agreement between the City of Roswell and T-Mobile South regarding the lease term and rent increase at the water tank at 808 Community Circle. And that's a water tank owned by the city. Currently, they pay under $3,000. This would increase the rent to $3,750 with a 3% annual increase. It would be for a 5-year extension with 3 renewals. And we recommend approval.
Council have any questions? Is there anybody in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve item number 7.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Tizer. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands, and it passes unanimously.
The only other item I have is a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel litigation and real estate.
We've got a recommendation for closure. Do I have a motion?
Motion for closure.
Motion by Councilmember Tizer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands, and it passes unanimously. We are adjourned.